make revisions and stuff. So we're also, I saw it's going to be like recording it a little bit too. So anyway, don't mind him. Don't mind it. Yeah. Don't mind the dude in the back.
We're going to open it up with just asking.
Yeah. So basically, obviously, Matt, that's my wife, Erin. I'm her husband, but yeah, we'll basically just go around really quick. And that's Obi, who everyone knows probably. But anyway, we'll basically go around kind of quick. If you don't want to share, that's totally fine. And just to get a sense of like what people want to get out of it, expectations. And if it's just like here, learn the stuff, take in the information, that's absolutely cool too. Do you want to add anything?
No, yeah, we're just going to go around, introduce, just say your name and what you're hoping to get out of today. These next 2 hours together.
I did turn my mic off.
Obviously, you don't have to have anything specific, but I can start. My name's Erin, and today I'm hoping to get out of this workshop just like coming and helping everyone to come back to the basics, because a lot of the time Matt and I say like, if the basics aren't mastered, we can't add in certain supplements or certain ways of eating or meal timing or whatever the latest trend is. If the basic things that we do to care for ourselves and to nourish ourselves aren't under control, I guess, I don't even like that word, but on point, then all the extra stuff is just not really going to matter, even though a lot of the time I think in the diet and food industry and stuff, they say it does matter. And we're going to kind of bust some myths a bit today about diet and exercise. Hopefully you guys really just get a lot out of these next couple hours. But anyways, that's my little intro. Maybe we'll go around this way. Di?
I'm hoping to get out of this class just to learn a little bit more about protein and getting more protein in my day.
Love it. Oh yeah, relatable. I think everyone here can agree with that for sure.
I'm Alina. I'm curious about the myth busting.
The myth busting.
It's Mythbusters,
Yeah. We're going Ghostbusters here today. I like it.
I'm Melanie, and hopefully gain a new perspective.
Ooh. Love it. Love it. Staying open.
I'm Susan, and I'm here more or less what you said about the basics, like what to eat and when to eat it, because that's where
Yep. Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so valid. And I think everyone can relate to that in some regard too. And even the basics are hard. Like Matt and I still work hard at the basics like ourselves, right? And like really making sure our protein is up, and like these are challenging things. We're also going to talk about like what kind of gets in the way sometimes of us following through on what feels good for us and eating in alignment with our goals and stuff, for sure. Ash?
I'm Ashley, and Halloween gets in the way.
Yeah. No more holidays, okay? Yeah. Yeah.
I want to
That's awesome.
get out of this eating to fuel my body and not to be worried about like a diet per se, but just a healthy way of eating.
Nice.
Yeah,
We'll definitely,
great.
that's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah, we're really into that. That's great. I love it. Big baby.
I'm Brian. I'm just open to what you guys have to say and helping in any ways.
Okay. Oh, you're voluntold to be here. Yeah.
Yes, I was looking for told.
Yeah. I didn't mean it that way, but yeah. I love it.
Hi, I'm Maureen, and I'm hoping to be able to do a little bit better job at upping both our protein and getting us to meet our goals in the gym, because we're actually properly fueling before and after.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I know. So well spoken. Yeah, I love it. Suzanne.
I'm Suzanne, and I just wanted to reinforce some of the basics and just the references to protein. I know that's always a challenge for me is regular meals and making sure there's sufficient protein in every meal.
Yeah, I love this. A good theme.
Yeah, protein's a big one, I see.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We're going to tell you about all the myths about protein. No, I'm just kidding. It's good stuff.
I'm Martha,
understand a little bit better. They speak like a foreign language. Even though
Okay,
I
perfect.
know who they are, they still speak foreign.
Sweet. We
Valid
got
point.
you. We got
That's
you
such
on
a
that,
valid
yeah.
point. It's like so touted oh macros if it fits your macros, and it's like what's that? Yeah, no, I love that point, Robbie boy.
I'm Rob. I'm here to get some tips and strategies on how to make space for you to make right decisions about nutrition.
Nice. Great. Sweet.
Love this.
Sweet.
Leanne?
I'm Anne. I'm Matt's mom.
Aaron.
And my mother-in-law.
I'm here for support and to learn about
Support.
because I don't have a good one.
I love it. That's awesome. That's great. Tedley?
That's the I'm here because I want to.
Yeah. The definite support. Yeah. Seriously, I know he was farting up a storm this morning. Yeah. John?
And I'm John, and
Turn it down.
as I get older, my fitness is harder. I feel nutrition is a big part of it, so I'm here to learn.
Sweet.
Love that.
Great.
That's awesome.
Assad, you want to
So,
share
you want to
back
chime
there?
in on
or-
that?
I'm here to help around.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to level up the nutrition game.
Always.
That's like that's such a key point too. Always, right? I think this is like all the things that we're saying here is like
Yeah, it's always learning and adapting, right? Like even like for us running the business recently, like for me, my goal is to like eat more, right? Because it's like easy to get caught up in the day and honestly not eat enough. So it's always a work in progress, right? I think it's a lot of times we find a meal plan, or we want a meal plan, but it doesn't really adapt to your life either, right? So it's this thing that's kind of like constantly in flux, right? So it's understanding principles and then using those principles to make decisions that work for you now, and then as things change in your life, you'll be able to continue to adapt with those changes, right?
Yeah, no, I love it. Do you want to mention anything about our experience with food or with
I mean,
dieting?
we love food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
that's
do
the
like
thing,
food,
I think-
and that's the thing too. Is enjoying food is what we want to like also have everyone, and as we get into it, but incorporate too, right? Is like you can still eat foods you enjoy. Food is fuel for sure. It's more than that as well. It's community, it's connection. If you look at culture, history, right? Food's always brought us together for experiences. So it's just figuring out the balance in what works for us, right? But yeah, I mean, our experience, we both were, we both went about 100 pounds overweight when we were younger. For me, it was more like playing sports a lot growing up, having really bad social anxiety, doing lots of drugs when I was in my youth. Getting up to no good, which I still do, but just not the drugs. But still get up to no good, I'm sure, in other ways. But and it's it's just so for me, that's how I kind of got into exercise and nutrition. Was kind of through that experience. Started going to school for psychology and kind of got interested in behavior and started working part-time as a trainer and kind of like the blend of those. And I think exercise can be used as a tool to build like resiliency, mindset, and growth too. And then nutrition just kind of came along with that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, that's your experience. Yeah, no, I think like we say we love food, and for me, like really being kind of like pulled towards food as a reward, right? Like going through the day, going through the week, kind of like pushing through, and then using food as a way to kind of like reward myself or to distract. And I'm sure these are pretty relatable things, I think. But for me, I think a biggest thing was, we've done extreme dieting ourselves, right? Like when we worked at a big global gym, we were more of the kind of more strict focus with food and stuff of like, oh, get your stuff together. This is what you should be doing. I'm telling you all the things to be doing. And at the end of the day, we can sit here and tell you until we're blue in the face that eating a bag of potato chips on the couch every night might not get us to where we want to go. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't do it, right? So I think it's this bigger idea of like nutrition is complex, and like our habits and our behaviors and our feelings are very complex, and there's nuance to it, right? So I think we used to be very much on the extreme end of the spectrum of
yeah, I mean, we've done paleo,
Yeah.
intermittent fasting. Like we've done things where we would fast for like 3 days,
Oh yeah, remember that, love?
Low carb, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I know, right? But these are the things that we do to ourselves to like get to the next, or right, like to get to our goals. But really, we're just sacrificing, and not listening to our own internal signals. And I think, like Matt had mentioned, like we need constraints. Actually, boundaries and constraints actually allow us to be creative and to feel more in choice with our food, especially. But a lot of the time, diets don't work, right? I think there's this stat that like 98% of diets don't work long term, right? Meaning they offer us rules to eating, but they don't always work to suit our specific lifestyle long term. And they do have a tendency to trap us in this like all or nothing kind of mindset, right? We're either being healthy, Halloween is over, we're healthy, and then the next holiday comes and it's like, okay, here I go again. And this whole like on the wagon, off the wagon can really do a number for our health and our metabolism. And so that's part of the myth busting that we're going to talk about today. But a lot of these times, like, I don't know if anyone can relate to paleo, vegan, carnivore, low fat, Mediterranean, Atkins, if it fits your macros, IIFYM, that's a big one, keto, right? What do all these diets actually have in common? And a lot of the time people think it's like being very strict with our portions or with what we're eating. But a lot of the time, it's just removing junk food, right? And paying more attention to what we're eating is a lot of the commonalities, I guess, between diets.
yeah, when you look at a lot of diets, like there's, if you look at like meta-analysis and stuff, but, there's like, a lot fail to account for like the healthy user bias, right? So it's like, as you start to just pay attention more to what you're eating and really what you're not eating, you see similar results across multiple diets, right? And I think a lot of times people get caught up in the perfect diet, right, or the best diet, and like in a global scheme, that there's not one that exists, right? It all has to be contextual to you and your life. So like these can all honestly work for different people, right? But like, and that's today we'll go through some steps. Like it's going to be interactive. If you ever have questions, just ask a question. Like
pop
it's,
it in.
you know what I mean? You don't have to wait really. That's fine. But we'll have you guys write some stuff down too and try to figure out like literally what works for you in your life and what you enjoy, right? But yeah, it's mostly like removing, like if you're eating McDonald's every day or takeout every day, 3 days a week or 3 meals a day, right? Like, if you switch to one of these, it's the removal a lot of times of the junk food, of the stuff you're not eating that really is the commonality between all these. So you can see results for everything. And a big thing we try to teach people is like that all or nothing mindset that goes along with that stuff too, right? Is how to incorporate foods you like, because a lot of us make these hard rules. I'm sure we've all done it. Like I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it, right? We're like, I'm never having pizza again.
No bread for me.
Or like, yeah, I'm never having a drink again, right? And then what happens? You have one slice of pizza, and then next thing you know, you're fucking like, passed out. You wake up the next morning, pepperoni on your chest, because in your mind, you're like, I've already broke the rule.
Right.
So it's like that fuck it mentality now, right? You're like, well, I've already had one, so now I may as well have the whole pizza, right? So if we can learn how to moderate a bit, it goes a long way in terms of long term, but it's a little bit harder, right? It's a little bit harder. It takes a little bit more practice.
That's why I think being in moderation is actually pretty radical. It's actually pretty hard to be moderate these days, right? And I think the way that our society is, and like what's happening right now, what information's at our beck and call, left, right, and center, it's actually really hard to be moderate. But we do really like to help we would like to help you get to a place of being intuitive with your eating. But like we said, sometimes if I was to say, Erin, be intuitive with your eating 5, even 8 years ago, I would have said, all right, my intuition's telling me that I need fries, okay? Like every day at least, right? Like that makes me feel good in the moment, right? But I think before we can get to this place, we likely need to provide and practice those constraints around food, like timing, like tracking, and that creates safety for us, right? And I think in the work that I love to do with clients, it really is about safety and centering safety to the body with our food, with our blood sugar, over weight loss. And sometimes weight loss or other things can be a byproduct of feeling more safe and at home in our body and just like self-assured, right? But we're just going to get into this little piece about like how the food industry is we're going to talk about how the food industry really messes with us, and it can kind of lead us astray from being intuitive with our food choices as well, right? I think a lot of the time the food industry, like they make things like this, for example. I think this is the next slide. Yeah, right? That you can't eat just one, and that's like a real thing that they had really hoped that we wouldn't eat just one of, right? Like they had done well, you could talk about it too, love, about the bet you can't eat just one food and how that changes and influences our mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically
it.
a term called hyperpalatability, right? So essentially it's a combination of salt, sugar, fat. And like they literally have teams in labs like creating these like perfect foods for our taste buds that stimulate a high dopamine response, oxytocin, these things like that basically kind of hijack our reward centers, right? So like for the chips, right? It's like, I bet you can't eat just one. It's like, yeah, for sure. Like, if you open a bag of chips, you're not eating just one, typically, right? But it's this combination of flavors that then you get so desensitized to like regular food, right? That you don't find, let's say, carrots to be sweet or something anymore, right? Because you're so used to just high amounts of sugar, fat all combined together. And so it's sometimes like when we're saying like it starts with constraints, sometimes it's like it's just this retraining, right? Sometimes it's just taking some things away that then long-term provide you with more freedom, basically, to make your choices. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically hyperpalatability. I mean, if you want to read more about it, there's a cool book called Wired to Eat that really goes into a lot of the science behind it and studies behind that. But that's basically the sense of hyperpalatability.
Yeah, and like the caloric density, I guess, like the density of calories in these hyperpalatable foods are like, they're next level. And like, I know I don't love to say like it's all calories in and calories out because our metabolism is so complex and nuanced that it's not just that. But like if we're eating a lot of hyperpalatable foods, very calorie dense a lot of the time, our blood sugar is going to have a hard time kind of fighting that. Our palate is going to have a hard time. I was just talking with a client the other day, and she was saying that she now doesn't even, I'm trying to remember the exact situation, but because she's been prioritizing more protein and more nourishing, like nutrient dense foods versus calorically dense foods, that she's starting to not even want as much sweet things at night and whatnot, right? So it's just interesting that I think like if we stick with it and we start to shift away from these processed and packaged foods, not saying that they don't have a place for like in our diet, in our life and stuff, but it can really lead to kind of like an upward spiral. And I think when we think about diets, we think about, okay, I'm following this diet, and if I don't follow it, it's going to be more of like a downward spiral, right? Versus like if we can kind of think about things that help us feel like we're taking and changing our palate and slowly improving upon habits and stuff, that's going to be more of an upward spiral, and we just have more places to go from there, right? So just this is really a lot of things, a lot of these types of things can influence our metabolism, and the food industry doesn't give two flying Fs about your goals, just saying, right? So just trying to have a little bit of self-awareness in that regard, right? They really want to sell you things. And
that's where like we'll tie into tracking too, like, and we'll just do a quick demo of scale and like how to do it and stuff. Like, we'll touch on it too, but like we typically try to encourage everyone to track for like 2 weeks, just because of what we just mentioned, right? Like the hyperpalatability side of things. Like oftentimes we just don't really know what we're eating, right? And it's just awareness. It's not like good or bad. It's just a starting point of like, hey, this is where I'm at. And then it gives you a baseline. Like sometimes people undereat too, and we'll touch on that a bit as well. And that kind of downregulates our metabolism a little bit as well. So then it's in consciously eating more actually for a period where you might gain a little bit of weight, but then you will start to have the opposite effect. Sometimes you need to build it back up too, right? But yeah, so we'll go over tracking. We'll show some demos as well, and we'll touch on kind of how to set your calories. We'll get you guys starting to write some stuff down as well. But.
So calories. Calories, That's like a huge thing in the fitness and the diet industry, right? It's like, oh, how many calories does that have? Or oh, like there's some awareness. I think everyone knows about calories for the most part. They're a way to measure the energy that we consume. And they come from macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fats, right? They're crucial for dictating energy
And alcohol
balance.
is its own one.
Yeah. Well, that's the next slide. So to achieve fat loss in particular, we must be in a calorie deficit. Obviously, there's nuance to that. But as Matt mentioned, under eating can impose its own problems as well, right? So, I mean, I know a lot of the time, like even my mom growing up in the low fat, era as well, right? It's like, oh, this is too many calories. And I'm pretty sure she was under eating for a long, long time, right? And that kind of like gave her problems later in her life.
And it'll stress the metabolism. As I mentioned before, your body will downregulate metabolism, so you actually won't burn as many calories essentially throughout the day, right? You'll start to maybe feel like more stressed, irritable. If you're active, not recovering from your workouts, and honestly can like ruin relationship with food too, right? You start looking at food in this really negative way, maybe start using exercise as like punishment for eating out or something like that. So we definitely want to like discourage that. And then it's also just enjoyment of life. Like, you maybe avoid social gatherings because how many calories are in things, right? Or vacations, birthdays, like date nights, like that type of stuff, right? So we don't want to have people so consumed with that it takes away from your enjoyment of life as well.
Yeah, but then at the same time, we need constraints and we need boundaries to actually start to get more information on what does work for us and what kind of caloric intake is ideal for me with where I'm at right now. And we're going to go over that as well. And we're going to give you a bit of a framework for that. But this is kind of what Matt was talking about, right? On average, for 1 gram of protein, there's about 4 calories. Same with carbs. Fats are 9, and alcohol is its own category in its own. And that has like 7 calories per 1 gram of alcohol, right? So just thinking, I think it's a cool way to think about this, and we're going to talk about this more of like, when I'm thinking about building a framework for me, for my caloric needs and whatnot, protein and carbs are obviously going to be a little bit lower calories, but we need fats to be able to improve our cholesterol and our hormones and to be able to keep those things functioning as well. Right?
Yeah, like all sex hormones are made from fat, right?
Yeah,
so it is super important. Like testosterone, like all that is from fat. Do you want me to like talk about like the
protein first?
No. Anyway, like the maintenance, like the calories for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, you go through and then I'll just say the numbers.
Well, just basically like what is the right caloric intake for you, right? That's going to depend on basically what weight you're at now, first off, and it's also going to depend on how active you are in the day, right? Your NEAT, just like how much energy you expend when you're doing things like house chores or you're walking or you're taking the dog out or whatever. Absorbing and digesting food actually burns calories as well. And protein, we're going to touch on this, actually like is the highest, I don't know, what would you say? How would you say that? Thermic effect. Yeah.
So it's called TEF, right? It's basically thermic effect of food, and it's just
and that's why protein,
like how much energy you burn through digestion or through your body breaking it down to be absorbed, right? So proteins usually, it's changed a bit, like in some of the literature recently, but somewhere around like 17 to 25% is a fair amount. Carbohydrates typically like are going to be the next highest, with fiber being higher. And then fat would be the lowest, basically. And again, that's not saying like inherently one means like that protein is like inherently better just because of that, but it's super satiating as well, right? So when we look at like those feelings of fullness and everything, like protein, like if you, I brought a chicken breast we had at home, and we can weigh it and see what it weighs, right? But like if you think about trying to eat like 300 calories of chicken breast or 400, like it's actually pretty fucking hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not super palatable, and it's filling. But if you were to go, eat 400 calories of Haagen-Dazs, like it's like no problem. You'll eat 1,000 easy, right? Yeah. So it's also setting ourselves up for success in terms of like, and this is in nutrition in many areas of life, right? Is like setting up your environment for success too, right? We're always products of our environment. So if we can set up our environment where we have certain foods that are on hand and where we come in meal prep and stuff. But like, it's going to just make it easier to eat those foods, right? But anyway, so that's where like the satiety kind of plays into that in terms of that fullness signaling. Like protein is going to be the highest on that.
Yeah, it's going to satiate you. And that's one thing that I learned too. I was like eating like smoothies for breakfast every morning, and like I had the, spinach up in there. I had the peanut butter. I was doing the protein powder, vegan protein powder, and I was starving 2 hours later. And I'm like, the fuck? I'm eating all these like healthy things. Like this is amazing like for breakfast, but why am I starving? What the heck is wrong with me? Do you see how it goes right into that? Like, what the heck is wrong with me? Versus as soon as I ate like a chicken breast for breakfast or had more eggs or bacon, I was like, all right, I feel way different.
And that's not to say smoothies are bad.
No,
like, if I
not
have a
at all.
smoothie for breakfast, I feel pretty good. But it's like,
yeah, it just depends.
That's where it comes down to that individuality, right?
And I think we're gonna try and help you guys calculate your own little like this is pretty like in depth. Like for us when we're looking at what is our daily
if you want to you can write down calculator.net if you're interested.
Yeah.
And it's just a website that is going to take in, like, you put in your activity level. If you're working out, honestly, like a couple of times a week, I'd probably set it at active.
Yeah.
And getting 7,000 steps a day type of thing, you'd probably go active on that. Otherwise, maybe a little bit lower. But anyway, so you can go to that on your own. We were going to bring it up, but it's just like takes too long. So if you want to check that out later, great. Put that in, and it'll give you an approximation. Now, and then I'll touch on this just now, but like, we always want to try to keep your calories. Let's say weight loss is a goal, which is just the more common side of it. But you always want to try to keep your calories as high as you can while you're still losing weight, okay? Because it's going to make you feel more energy. We have this thing called NEAT, which is like non-exercise activated thermogenesis, but it's like basically like fidgeting. You can think about it as fidgeting, right? And they've done studies where if you take calories down too low, fidgeting actually reduces. So it's our body's way of like naturally conserving energy, right? So it's oftentimes as you eat more, you just naturally move more, but you're also, which everyone here is, into working out, you're going to have more exercise, more energy for your exercise and activity. So you're going to make more gains, you're going to make more muscle, which muscle burns more calories than fat, right? So you see how it goes. It can go either way. It's going to go either way. But as we increase our intake, our output will typically increase if we do it slowly. So it's always like take it as slow as possible. That's muscle gain or muscle or fat loss either, right? You just want to do it slow, but where we're going with it now is like finding our maintenance, right? So unless you're going to like DEXA scan and blah, 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 there's going to be a variance there, right? Like, but as long as we have a baseline, we make adjustments. And when we do this, it's like, I always try to say 2 weeks, like, try not to adjust your calories if you're tracking more than 2 weeks, because it's not linear, right? Like, we're going to have plateaus, and people sometimes think like, oh man, I gained a pound today. Like water retention, if you ate more carbs, they pull in water with them. So we're going to have fluctuations, but we need to give our body time to adjust. And then, in 2 weeks, you haven't lost weight or gained weight, if that's your goal, right? It's like, okay, then you make a small adjustment, maybe 100 calories or something, right? But too many people course correct too early. That's a big thing. Okay?
Which comes back to the mindset
so
thing too. But yeah,
where we're at with this, right, is like, this is, again, if you want to just ballpark, maintenance calories are 14 to 16 per pound.
So it's like how much you weigh right now.
Yeah, let's just times that, right? Typically, fat loss, we try not to go under 12 per pound, because that gets pretty low. Like, anyway, so we'll give you if you're like a physique competitor, it might not. But anyway, you know what I mean? For general people, like 12 to 14. And then gaining is going to be about 16 to 18. Okay, so just general, again, right? That's why there's, we always try to preface this by saying, like, these are generalities. You got to work with you and obviously listen to your body as well, right? But that's a general starting point for that kind of stuff, okay, and set calories. So, let's just give everyone a second right now and just write down like your maintenance calories.
What your maintenance calories?
Right, you just go like your body weight. You don't have to share it with anyone. That's fine, and times it by 14 to 16, right, or 15. Usually, we'll just say start at 15, and then you just have a number, because I want everyone to have a bit of like
a number going
shit to work with. Yeah, I want everyone to